to find a leaf that is large. Mine is so large that I didn't really quite just, I could have done that. I did do it on the second one that I drew. So because my leaf was 8 inches. And you know, it's just going to get you there a little bit faster, but you still have to draw. What's important is like to give value to the leaf. When I look at it, one of the things is that you want to notice is, see how I have these lines? In the end, I'm going to have a space that has lighter value that tapers down thinner. And even though I have graphite here, I could easily, you know, take some of it out or lighten it. And that's the thing about drawing, is that it's additive and subtractive. And so you have to think of it in terms like that, so that if you're working on something and you're going, oh, it's terrible, it's not like it's irredeemable, because you just keep working on it till you are happy with it for the most part. So it's important to get a large leaf. You want to get a leaf that you can see the main veining, which is really obvious on here, and then the secondary veining, which are these veins coming off of here, the bigger ones, and then these really tiny ones in here, which you're not going to have to draw all of them, but you want to just include some of them in some areas. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started on this. If you have questions, you'll have to speak them, because I can't really see the chat from here. Next week I should have my laptop up and running and be able to do it all from here so that I could see the chat. So just remember, if you want to ask a question, just feel free to ask it. And I do actually, Dan, you know what, I think I am more comfortable standing up, and then I don't stick my head in the camera. So what I did was, after I had the outline, I went and I put little dots. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What I did was, before I drew them in, you see these little dots? I put dots here where they would go before I started drawing them, because I knew I wasn't going to get it right the very first time. So once I did that, I looked at the leaf structure. Is it symmetrical or is it asymmetrical? This is asymmetrical because, look, if it was symmetrical, you would see this one coming off right exactly at the same spot, but it's higher up, and they seem to all be just a tiny bit or more so higher up than the one on this side. So once I did this side, it gives me a lot of information that I can use to do the other side. Another thing that I notice is they don't go out, they really go up. So you really want to pay attention to what is happening on your leaf, not what you think happens on leaves. So I'm on this one, and this one ended here. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I didn't put this one in. Okay. And I didn't put that one in, because what I was doing was I was just doing the ones that were related to these. So I'll have to go in and put those in later. But I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm doing this one, and it starts here, and it just kind of follows and just gets a tiny bit wider at the end here. This is a tiny bit wider than this. And then this is somewhat narrower than this width here. So that one's going to come and end up here. And it's a little bit off and then comes down. And then this one comes up, and I'm a little tight here. I think I might have messed up here. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So I think it's okay. I just got a little tight in there. I can widen my leaf if I want when I get to doing the details on this. So right now I kind of have I'm going to put in this because this seems pretty prominent comparison. They're both about as prominent. So this kind of crosses over right here and has a little bit of a jog and then comes down and kind of follows that same pattern. So first thing I'm going to do, I said this in my other demo that you watched, Dan, is that I'm a little bit afraid of the white page. So I'm going to take my chamois. This is where I sharpen my pencil. I took out the bits of wood. There's still a few of them, but it's not going to be a problem. And I can make my chamois into a little pillow. And I can pick up this graphite, and this is my scrap paper, and I'm just going to test it on here. So can I put down some of this graphite, and how smudgy will it be? Okay, I want it to be really light, so I think that I'm kind of going to just go for it and just sort of put some value on my leaf to get started. And it's a little uneven, and I might have lost some of my lines, but I can still find them. So might be taking off some of this. So you might not want to do that, but it is a way of getting graphite on your page. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start with my 4B pencil, and I'm going to establish the areas that are around the veining in here. So just to start to establish the structure of the leaf.
Yolanda, we don't see the leaf, the leaf completely. If you could, yeah, thank you.
So here I'm going to get a little bit darker where my edges are. And I kind of like the way, even though this is kind of messy, I can still see my lines well enough that I can do this. And it gives it a little bit of sort of variety, which leaves are natural objects and they have a lot of sort of undulations in them. So I'm not really sorry I did that. But you might find it difficult if your lines are light. Or you can't feel like you're not going to control it. You might not want to use that process. In fact, something that could be done, and this is what this is more powdered graphite, but it's actually from this powdered graphite lubricant I have. Like I told other people, they sell it as an art supply, but it's a lot cheaper if you buy it in a hardware store, and it's basically the same thing. So this is my blender and a blending stump, and I can just pick up some of this. I could also pick it up from, you know, if you just have shavings from your 9B pencil or your other pencils, you would have different values. When you buy the powdered, you're just going to have one. And so you could do it this way instead of using the pencil if you wanted, but it's going to be a little bit more work. You can always blend the pencil to look like that after you get it down if you want it. So right now, the way I'm doing this, I'm kind of ignoring some of the in-between veining, but that's okay because I can always pull it out with the tip of an eraser. I know that you have the green eraser, and sometimes, so what I do when I get it, well, when I get it this dirty, I usually clean it, but I also just take scissors and snip it to get a sharp edge, so if I want to have a clean line that I want to erase. So getting back to here, and this is a really large area that I'm going to go into right now. So I have to find that other one is here. And you can see I'm kind of going in a lot of different directions so that I don't end up with a lot of directional markings show me. If I start sticking my head in the way of the camera, let me know. I probably won't because I would hit it. I lowered it a little bit today. So they're pretty, and I can always thin down the thickness of the veining. Right now I'm just kind of getting in some major structure of the leaf. And I think I do want to go ahead and do this while I can see the lines. And I'm just sort of doing I'm not really putting any pressure with my pencil. And I'm using my 9B right now, or no, I'm using my 4B right now so that I can later go in and bring my 9B and get darker. I used the HB to do the outlining and the veining so that it would sort of disappear in the end. So now, and on this drawing you can have both line work and value. So in the end, some of the smaller veins I think I'm going to put in just as line work. You can see that even though the veining here that is popped up, it has a little highlight. On this side it's darker, so I would be putting in the shadow with a dark line. Now I'm going to go ahead and find the tip of the leaf up here. I might have lost that a little bit, but I can pull it back out. So that's starting to give me the main veins. Gonna go ahead. And one of the things I recommend is to try to work your leaf holistically. I think the other demo that I did last semester, I noticed that I focused on one part and worked on it till it was done. But I think the reason I did that is because it's a demo and it can take me, let's see, this one should be higher. It can take me more than a couple of hours to do it. and people don't want to sit around and watch that, but I wanted people to be able to see how the level that I want it finished to. So this is here, and actually this probably is a little bit straighter, and then that'll resolve what I was trying to do on this side is make it higher. So, and I want to leave the thickness of the stem in here, which at the top it's not as wide, it's thinner than it is down here. So and then this one is here, which is higher, so it's going to be more like here. And going and I really am going super light pressure, hardly any pressure at all to do this. And the reason I'm holding my pencil at such a low angle is because I get more width of the pencil. If you have any graphite pencils that are thicker, they could help you. I used to have students buy this if you're in an art store and you would like to have something that is a bit thicker to work with. These are pretty good. They're about $2. I didn't put them in the kit because I was trying to keep the cost down. And with the pencil, you know, it's a bit slower, but the slower you work, the more conscious you are of the marks that you're making. And just in general, I know that as it gets closer to the edge, it's going to have a little bit more darkness, more shadow. So I went a little too far right here because this is getting broader. And this one comes, the third one. So that one is a little bit higher than this. So this is going to end at about here. And my line is here, so and one of the things you want to be conscious of is that if you're dragging, you could be smearing, so I should probably move my paper so that my hand isn't rubbing on here. At this point, it's not so critical, but as you get closer to finishing, it can be a little more critical, and it'll be even super critical when you're working in charcoal, but that won't be till the next module. 1, 2, 3, because you're going to do a leaf in charcoal as well. So this is the fourth one, in case you can't see it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that one is almost the same place. So I think I just need to get rid of a little bit of that and follow this line. And I think this issue is going to get resolved by the fact that I'm already up a little bit higher, so I won't be so crunched when I get to the bottom of the leaf where I had run out of space for that last vein. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little light value here. I'm going to do the same up here. One of the things that I recommend doing is when you're drawing is to take a look at your work from a distance. So once I get in this veining, I'm going to stop and look at it from a distance and see where I want to go from there, what I think I might need to work on a little bit. I'm going to lighten this vein, this one. A lot of people think of erasure as fixing mistakes. It's not really fixing mistakes, it's part of the process. So I would encourage everybody to start thinking of your eraser as just another tool in your arsenal of drawing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here, this is going to be just slightly higher than that side. So I'll end it there. And I think I started doing the entire area because it's easier to do the multi-directional marking in a larger space. And I know I'm going to want to have some values in there anyways. So, and that's part of the process. As you go along, you do what works for you. Everybody doesn't have to do it exactly the way that I did it. And a lot of times you'll see that in the videos I post, and then when I do my demo, I'm probably going to be doing it slightly different from the person whose video I had posted. And part of the reason I do that is so that you have a multitude of ways of doing it available to you, so that you know that there's not just like one right way and a wrong way. And sometimes for assignments there's a right way and a wrong way to specific things, because it is a course and you get college credit, so there's certain things that I have to make sure that you've had some experience with. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 3 more here that I have to fit in here, and I know that one of them is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I shouldn't be counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's this one, and then I have 2 more underneath that one. That makes sense. Okay, so this is the one that is here, and now I'm going to do that one. No, sorry. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am working on that one. And that one is up higher. So if you feel comfortable with doing darker outline, so you're not getting lost like I am, do that if you think it's going to help you. Actually, I like to use a soft brush. So if you have a soft brush, that kind of works better. And right now you can still see a lot of directional marking. If I wanted to get rid of that, I can use my blender. This one goes down like that, and it comes up and goes back out a little. And if you find yourself doing it and then you're going, oh, I missed one or I made a mistake there, and if it's just a minor, like down here, I can just leave off one of the veinings if I had to, but I am going to be able to fit them in. So that's that. That's that. So I don't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so here there is kind of one here. Just a little kind of notch there. So this should be wider here. And I'm going to leave that there so I can fit this one in here. So now I'm going to go back. So I'm taking a distance look at it. What I'm going to do right now, I think, is fill in this side to match what I've done on here, and then I'll decide what the next step is. And I'm going to leave that white there because maybe I'm going to have a highlight there. The problem with when you're drawing from the leaf and you keep moving it around is that the shadows will change. But what I'm going to do for purposes of this is to just, use the idea that, well, the light is coming from the window, but actually this is my darker side. So yeah, the light's coming from the window, so all the shading is going to be more heavy on this side, not so heavy on this side. So, or at least these corners are going to be the darkest, and I'm going to go back in and darken those after I establish the rest of the veining on this leaf. Can somebody give me the time?
Right now it's 2:58.
Oh, okay, I'm good. It's only taken me 8 minutes to do this much? 38?
2:58.
Oh, 58, okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
as I told you, I have to go, Yolanda, so I will continue seeing this in the
Okay.
recording.
All right.
But this
Okay.
gave me a very good idea already.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And some of you might feel more comfortable putting in all your veining and then going in and doing your values. If you think you can do it that way, try doing it that way, because everybody does work differently. So rather than darkening that more, I think I'm just going to pull this up higher, brighter, by erasing some of that. So it does take time, and I know I'm aware of the fact that the school says something like 7.5 hours of work per week, and yeah, that works. If you're just getting the class credit and you do the work, that's good. But if you're really interested in getting better at drawing, it might take you a bit longer than 7.5 hours a week. So everybody can just, do the work that they feel is appropriate for them. And I went too far there, so I'm just going to pull that out.
I have a question about your erasers.
Yes.
Where are you getting your narrow tipped erasers? I went to Blick and they just had
Amazon.
thick
They
pink
don't.
pearl kinds of ones.
Oh, they have the pink ones?
Yeah, but they're not as narrow as pointed as the one you have.
I got this one. I searched for them. I found them on Amazon. If you want, I can send you a link later today. I
Yes,
think,
please.
okay. Because at first I just bought like a little package of 5 of them, and I loved them so much. I bought a package of 250, but they're all at the school. I do have, my stash here, but at school I just would give them to students because it's easier for me to buy stuff in bulk sometimes.
Well, I bought something that looked like a retractable eraser that was a small cylinder, like a pen. And I
Uh-huh.
tried that, but it got dirty so quickly that it really wasn't working.
I bought a electric eraser. It's just too much effort to use it, honestly, because you have to put in it has a really skinny little eraser thing, and it can break if you put it out too far. If you put it in so that it doesn't break, then it's like you use it up right away. So I just these are my go-to eraser. Other than the big one. This one is really good for when you're doing expressive drawing, especially with charcoal. I was doing just messing around with some charcoal, preparing for the demos in charcoal, and I just think those erasers work so well with charcoal. Not so much, well, with graphite too, but they get dirty. So the way that you clean them is you just have to take them and erase with them on a scrap piece of paper. And one of the things about, drawing is a lot of people want to get to that dark just by bearing down with their pencil. But I think you're gonna find you get much better results if you're patient and you just put down graphite slowly. And even though I'm doing this slowly and not using a lot of pressure, I'm still getting a pretty decent value here pretty quickly. So this, now if I wanted to get rid of some of those directional markings, I could just take my blender and you can see how it changes the character of that. And I'm just kind of doing that to sort of mimic the sort of sawtooth ends of the leaf right now. So pushing out some of this graphite. I also noticed that this leaf, these veins, they come and they kind of disappear off. Instead of going off the leaf, they just kind of follow along the edge of the leaf. So I'm going to try to mimic that a little bit here. Oh, I lost the white part of it here. And a little bit more smoothness. Sorry about that. Ooh, I won! Yay! Can you guys hear that?
Not quite, but that's okay. It's
That's
somebody
okay,
selling you
yeah.
something.
They're telling me I won something on the phone. So what I'm doing here is, if you look at the leaves, at the veining, it doesn't just come straight out, but it kind of like emanates out. So that's what I was kind of doing here, was trying to get a little bit of that in by rounding this edge instead of it being super square. That one I'm leaving, those I'm leaving there. So this is coming out. Because it is, you know, I'm going to try to get that straightened out. And I'm not going to worry about that right there for now. So here, I'm putting a little bit more pressure, but not much. And I think that I think this looks too white, so I am going to take my, I'm not sure which blenders, which stumps you have. I think I had ordered a pack for you to get a pack of 6 of these, but they didn't have them, and I think you have 3. I'm not sure, they're probably different sizes. You probably have one at least this size. But you just use the smaller ones when you want smaller detail. And so what these do basically is blend your graphite. And so if I wanted to, you know, you could even sort of draw with them, but it's kind of, they don't hold that much graphite on them. So I am going to use this though to see if I can move some of this graphite around and get rid of that big white spot without putting a lot more graphite down.
We have 3 number 2s.
Oh, okay. So they're all the same size?
Yeah,
Are they more like this size? This is a number 1,
a
so
little bigger than that.
yeah, because this is a 6. This is a 3, so it's in between these two.
Right.
I don't have any of those. I just have 2s and 3s, I think. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I didn't really deal with the edges, so that's what I'm kind of dealing with right now.
That's what I was just going to ask about, was that it kind of looks like you got in the real leaf sort of scalloped edges.
Yes,
So you're
and
using your
I'm losing my scallops,
yeah,
but I think I can capture them back in the end just by doing,
uh, eraser.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
So
it's a
not
tool.
drawing the outline um, of the scallops with a pencil. Okay.
I did that just because, it's a addition and subtraction for me all the time. So
Okay.
like here, I'm gonna bring out some, because like I said, these veins sort of travel up the side instead of going off the edge of the pencil. I'm gonna pick up some graphite, powdered graphite to do this now. So you can see that I've gotten graphite from my hand, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to take some of that off just because it's bothering me, and see if I can get it keep it clean. So I can clean it up. I'm not gonna worry about the rest of it for now. So right now, I think what I want to do is sharpen my number 4 pencil a little bit. So that's one of the things that you always want to be conscious of, keeping your pencils sharp when you want them sharp. Sometimes you might want them a little bit dull. So I didn't totally make this sharp, but I still have a sharpened tip with a bit of an edge on it. So I'm going to look at my leaf, and I'm going to put shadows, more shadows on this side, and taper them off as they go up. And they're heavier on the bottom of the vein and in here. So So I think that what I'm going to do is go up, and then when I get in here, I think I'm just going to start focusing on working on this so that I can do some demo on the ink as well as the graphite.
Will you do some of this on the graphite of the secondary veins? And how
Yes, I'm going to do that all the way to the tertiary veins on here before I switch to the ink.
Okay, thanks.
This is where I had the white spot and didn't have as much graphite, and I'm going to put a little bit more down up here, but not too much. So a lot of it has to do with the pressure that you're using and the pencil that you're using. So before you actually start putting this down on your leaf, you might want to test it out, the different pencils, how lightly what you get with light pressure, what you get with heavier pressure, so that you're familiar with your tools. As you're drawing, you're going to know which pencil you want to reach for. But it does take some time and experience. So the more you work with the graphite, the more familiar you become with what pencil you want to use in which case. I do want to get rid of some of that highlight. It's kind of too bright. So what I'm going to do now is go back and so right now I looked at the leaf and I knew that I wanted to sort of darken in between the veins on this side. So now what I'm going to do is start putting in some of these secondary veins. So these smaller veins that are not as thick, that are coming off of here, and some of them that are coming off of this secondary vein. So here are the main vein, and here there's one here, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 in between this one and this one. So I'm going to use the eraser that you guys have, and let me grab my scissors. Because even these lose their sharp tip after a while. And so here, I'm just going to cut this. And now I have a sharp edge there, I think. Let me cut it sharper. And I'm going to use that to put in 1, 2, 3, 4 smaller veins here. And they're kind of like in the middle. There's bigger space here and a bigger space here than there is between them. So I'm going to start here. 1, 2, 3. And I can't get, you know, my eraser's a little clunky, but that's okay because I have a pencil and I can go in then and give them more definition. And they kind of come in and out, and that's okay because these are lighter than the ones that are more prominent. So I am going to try to get this part though. And come back in. So those are these, but they really do go out more. I'm gonna put this. So these come out, and this one goes and crosses. So this comes out, goes over here. This comes out. And they actually go more like that. So and I'm not so worried about them sort of going in and out of how light they are, because they are lighter veins and they're not as prominent, so you don't see the details as much. See how this got kind of white? I can take care of that just by using the blending stick. And then I can pull that out again if I want. So I don't really like how my eraser is so old and messed up. Your new one will probably work better, so I am going to go back to using this eraser here. And now I have some veining in here, in between in here. So this one actually ends. This one doesn't actually go like that. So I'm gonna get rid of a little bit of the graphite and blend this graphite. And that's more what's happening. This one ends, and then it actually starts to go that direction. So I'm just going to do that by putting in a dark line right here. And that's kind of too dark. I used too much pressure at once, but it's okay. I think I can deal with that, and I can soften it too. So I have little veinings coming off this way, and this is my 4B, but I think I'm gonna switch to my 9B. Here it is. And this is pretty sharp, So I have veins that are coming out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the first one. And maybe I'm going to take out 2, 3, 4, 5. There. And I think for this, I'm just going to take this pencil and put a line here and a line here and here. And that one should have been on the bottom, not on the top, so I'm going to kind of erase it a little and blend. I think I'm not going to do anything else to that. I'm just going to leave that like that. So that would be that secondary veining there, and or tertiary veining right there. I think I'm going to put some in here too, because I can see some in there. 1, 2, there's kind of like a webbing. So there's one that comes off right here. And there's some that come from here. I'm having trouble using this eraser. I'm going to go back to using this one because mine's too dirty. Something goes like that. And then one that comes here. So I have enough lightness that I can then come in and just emphasize this sort of.
I have a question about these secondary and tertiary ones. I haven't used this myself, but I know in drafting, and I saw there's like a metal template with cut openings in it, and people would erase things through the cut opening.
Yes, you can use those. Drafting, yes, I did drafting. I did architectural drafting for truss joists, so I do know drafting tools. Yes, you can use those. Those would be helpful if you have one.
Thank you.
So, you can really get fussy on this, but I know everybody's going to want to be getting their work done. So basically, I'm just kind of giving a little bit more definition in some areas. And I wouldn't go to this level on the entire leaf, but maybe in some areas, and then maybe like this area, I'm going to just basically put in, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of and come in with this 9B. So just that there's a little bit of indication of that veining without putting in all of it or all the tertiary veins. So some of it you might leave. I'm going to use this pencil back to my 4B. I think what I would do in this drawing is sort of consistently only use the 4B as my darkest on this half, and maybe just a little bit in here, but keep all of this with the 4B the darkest and use the 9B so that one side is a little bit darker than the other side. And one of the things that could be helpful is to actually take a picture of your leaf and use the picture for the values, but you would still want to look at your leaf for the veining, because it's not going to show up on the photo the way that you can see it, and you want to draw from life for the most part. And so I do know that there's a little bit of veining here, so I might sort of just kind of give it the general idea without really drawing those in. Because if you put a super amount of detail all over, it kind of becomes too much. So there's areas where you want to like maybe focus interest more, sort of spread it out and not go to extreme detail in everything. Now these lines really kind of stand out to me a lot, so I would want to sort of tone them down, and the way that I would do that is just to add a little bit more to the edges of them so that it dissipates how strong they are. And if I think that that looks too light, too dark, then I can just take my kneadable eraser and pull out a little bit of graphite. And I think that's okay. I mean, I would keep working on it, but at a certain point you have to say, okay, that's it, and you got what you can from this drawing, and move on. So of course, before I would submit this, or you would submit this, you would want to like clean up, and then you could also I'm going to deal with the edges here a little bit before I move on to the ink one. So one of the things that's happening here, so let's deal with the edges up here where we kind of have it finished. So there's not really much there. That's kind of straight. So I'm going to go ahead and let that be straight. And it actually, the leaf comes around, and then there's the sawtooth stuff happening. And that might be too much. So, trying to use my regular eraser as a kneadable eraser, I might lift a little bit of that. And those become a little bit softer. And so this is another way that you can come back and start to put in the more defined edge. You might have to blend some of these values into it. Trying to figure out how to make my phone not ring, but I couldn't even do that with that landline phone. So you can start to see that it's an irregular edge that way, and that's what you would do for that. So, all right, any questions on the graphite? No. All right, so this is watercolor paper. That was drawing paper. So when you do your charcoal leaf, you're going to do it on mixed media paper. I just want to mention that when you got the packet from school, there should be 24 sheets, 12 sheets of the drawing paper that are on top, and then there's a little post-it note. And the post-it note separates the drawing paper from the mixed media paper. The mixed media paper has a little bit more of a tooth on it, and I think that it's better for the charcoal. So I did put that in the assignment, but I did want to mention that. So, all right, so ink. The first thing I have to do is I haven't drawn in my main veins. I wish I had done that earlier, but I didn't. So even though, this is my 4, yes. Even though this has thickness to it, I just want to place it. So I'm just going to draw it as a line. I'm not going to do double lines. I know some people like to do that, and you can do that if you want, but it's easier for me to just do this. And this is going to be an ink, so you really want to use your HB, not my 4B. This is my HB. I know your HB is black, but so now I have that main line. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on this side I know, and the first one is about here. This one is pretty lower, pretty far from there. This one is closer, and this one is even closer. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. So that's where I'm going to place my veins. And this starts up here and kind of comes down. So kind of like this. This one kind of comes around here and then jogs down to open curve here. That might be a little too open, but something like that. And then here, this one starts up here and it comes down to here. This one also starts up here and it's here. This one comes up. So comes up here. And this one kind of follows the other one. Gets a little closer at the top and then comes up. This one also comes up. This is a narrower space than this. Comes like that. This side is higher up. This side is higher up, but it's not very far here, but it's further over here. It's up. This one's not too far up from that one, and it gets smaller as it goes to the top. Wider here, narrower here. This one has less of a dramatic, this is a lot wider compared to here. This is pretty similar, but just a little bit narrower on the top. So, and this one starts kind of close to that where that one is. So there, but it really does go up more like that. And then this one starts here, and this is the one I'm on, and it comes down above that one. So I think I'm too far down here. And then here, this one also is up. Here comes and comes down here. So then there's another smaller one here. So now what I'm going to do is use the ink. So excuse me. So ink. I kept this bottle of dirty ink and this settled. I'm going to shake it up because I can use this both to clean and as a value, but I can also have my clean water when I want to dilute. So those are probably not in the picture plane, but you know they're there. So I have my ink. I won't need that. I have to switch out what I'm using now. I'm going to have my stick pens, and I also have my fountain pen. Everybody should have a Sharpie. What I recommend doing is on a scrap piece of paper, if you have different pens, draw with them so that you're familiarized with the thickness of the line. This one is a fountain pen, so the slower I go, the thicker the line, the faster I go, the smaller the line, so you can control that a little bit. This is the Sharpie, and it just gives you pretty much one thickness of line. You can sort of get it a little thinner if you start to lift your pen off the page, but so just so that you know what you have. So this is going to be different because it's water-based. So I'm going to start out by just using really super light value, and I don't want to put it everywhere, because once I put it everywhere that I touch, ink is going to go, because what the nature of ink is that if I put, so this is just going to be a test because I can do this on here because I'm not going to submit this as my assignment. So if I put water here, well, I should have put fresh water, but if I put water here, say I wanted to make this part darker, like say this is the veins here, and I wanted to darken this area here, I wouldn't be able to do it without the ink going everywhere. And I'll show you what I mean, that once I put some ink here, I gotta take that out with the dropper. I have no control. It bleeds. So what I'm going to do, my rag, you always want to keep a rag around. I'm going to take clean water, or actually I'm going to take this value, and I'm going to put it in the areas, in this area where one of the things you want to remember is that once you put your ink down, it's permanent, it's going to stay there. So I want to have another value. I'm going to take some of this. So this is darker, and I'm going to take some of this now, and if I put it in here, I can do the same thing I was doing with the graphite. The thing about this is it takes some subtlety. You want to know that your ink is light enough, and so I want this top, the bottom of the veining to be a little bit darker. I'm going to just sort of like glance that really dark ink, and that's pretty dark, but not too dark. So I'm just going to let that, and this one you're not going to have as much control, but you'll learn what your ink can do and what it can't do. So now I'm going to take fresh water so that I can bring that value down. One of the reasons you want to use watercolor paper for this drawing is that the watercolor paper is going to behave much differently than the drawing paper. The drawing paper is going to buckle because it's only 80 pounds. This paper is 140 pounds, so much heavier. So
I have a question about the watercolor paper.
yes.
I noticed when we used it before, or when I used it, that there was the smooth side, which is up when you open the book, and then the back side's kind of bumpy. So I assume you're working on the smooth side.
Okay, that's fine. There's like two types of watercolor paper. There's what they call cold pressed and hot pressed. Cold pressed is bumpy, textured. Hot pressed is smooth. Some people really like the smooth paper. Some people really prefer the cold press. So it just depends You can draw on either side. So now if I go here and I do this and I make sure that I don't touch what's already wet, because what I did here is called wet and wet. It was already wet, I wet it, and so when I add more water, it's wet into wet, and it moves a lot. The ink is going to move in the water that you have down, but once the ink and the water that you have down starts to dry, things aren't going to move. And if you don't want things to move and you want to be more in control, you could do this with a dry brush, meaning that you don't put down water first. And this is drying really fast because I have a fan on over in this room. So let's see. I think I'm going to add more water so that I can keep that characteristic of wet and wet. The gradation that I have right there. So that's a bit much, but I can move it around. I took some off my brush by wiping it on my rag. So here, it's your brush that is going to be your blender. And what time is it, Dan?
About 3:45.
What time do I say I'm done?
3:45.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on the veining on here. So now that I have this, how would I do the veining? That's now when you might use your pens. I'll use the Sharpie since that's what you have. And where's my leaf? Here it is. So that's there. That's there. That's that. That's that. So I can come in and here, this might be wet still, so it might be kind of hard to do, but I can come in and put in that line, put in that line. And I'm going to do this not with this pen, but I'm going to do it with this because I don't like how dark that is. The contrast, I think, is too high. So I'm going to use a lighter ink that's darker. This should be just a little darker. Okay, that's okay. So I'm going to use this and put in some of this veining. I can see that this comes here, goes there, and there's some here. And here. And this goes like that. So this is how you would do your veining using your dip pen, because your dip pen will allow you to use the lighter values. I think that the Sharpie, you might use it in a very few places where maybe you want to go in and give this dark corner a little bit more depth, where you have more control than you would with your brush. So another place might be here. And you can also tone down. Now, I wouldn't try to use these or this, anything like this or like this, until this is totally dry, because I could feel that it was saturating this tip with water and making it soggy and mushy, and I wasn't able to really put down any more ink. Well, it's hard, so I would be cautious about that. I'm going to go in here with a little bit of a darker ink and sort of diminish the contrast there. You really want to have that extra paper around to do your testing on it before you actually bring it to your page. So, do you think, similar to the way I did the graphite, only it's a different medium, I would recommend maybe working on your, and that's what I'm going to, next time I do a demo, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work a little bit on the graphite, switch over to the ink one. And if you do that, you're going to find that your ink will be dry, so that maybe you do all of this value, and then you come back in and you start to put in some of your secondary veining, maybe some of your shadows that would be a little bit more prominent right under here. And maybe I need some darker. So that's how you're going to do the ink leaf. Is that enough, or do you want me to do more? Is anybody still here? Yes. All right. So Dan, Renanco, Natalie, just. So, do you think you get the ink leaf now?
Would you mind doing a little bit more?
Sure, I'll do more. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and flesh these out and then do a little bit more detail in here. So I'm going to use my brush and this value. Yeah, that's good. Finish. One of the things is that you'll see that once it dries, that's it. You're always going to have those sharp edges. But that's okay, because in the greater scheme of things, it's not really going to notice that much, unless you have that everywhere. And if I wanted to tone that down, what I could do is bring in a little bit of darker ink and cover it up. Let that get lighter. But I think I do want to bring a little bit of a darker edge right underneath it. And I like the way that bleeds out. It kind of starts to give the idea of some veining, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to put a little bit more. So now it's going to be dry on dry because, well, it's sort of still wet, but I think it's okay. And put a little bit of ink down here. Now, on this leaf, you're a little bit more committed to your veins because you can't erase the ink. So charcoal and graphite are additive and subtractive. Ink is just additive. When you put it down, it mostly stays down. Unless it has a lot of water, you can mop it up a little bit, but you're always going to have some staining there. So I'm just sort of doing that. And now I am going to go in 1, 2, 3. I don't really see much going on here, so I'm just going to leave that, but I do see a little bit of down here. So sort of just something like that here, also here, there. And these are sort of joining in. I'm going to go a little darker. And here.
Sorry, I'm a little bit lost on exactly where you are on the leaf, where you're drawing those.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Here. So
my gardener showed up and it's hard to hear. I should have had my headphones.
oh yeah, well, my audio's not the best. And these actually go all the way across, it looks like. And there's one that goes back down. This one doesn't go all the way across. And I wish I could get rid of that. I can't, so I'm going to disguise it the best I can. I'm just sort of echoing the lines that I already have there from when I was doing it earlier. So here, there's some really thin light lines that come out between these and out here. Sort of tapers off. And I think that at this point, I'm going to move up into this one. It looks a little messy here, but I think that once you get in, I'm going to go ahead and put in underneath here some of the value so that it can start to define that other edge. And you'll see what I mean. So this is dark here. That's okay because this is in here close. And it'll get lighter. And I know that I have that sawtooth edges, so I'm going to maybe go ahead and let that start to develop there. I want to come back before my edges dry. And I'm going to try to define this edge more. I'm still unhappy with that. I'm going to come in and put in a little bit of some darker ink coming down this way too, so that it's not such a obvious dark line, different from the rest. So I feel like I need some darker values in here. Because I feel like I've lost sort of the veining. And I think I just want to add a few, I think it pulls it out more if I add a little bit of some shadows into some areas. Now, this is a part that I'm tempted to do with the micron pen, but I know the micron pen is going to be darker, and I don't want it to be darker. So I'm going to leave that like that. I think that's good enough. And 1, 2, 3, this one. So now on this one, I have this big swoop here. I have this one coming from here, and then a third one. So there's one that's kind of dark. That's better. One that comes out from the corner and kind of comes out and ends over here. And then there's another one that comes out here and sort of runs into this one. And there's another one that comes here and just kind of tapers off and disappears. Actually, it kind of comes and joins one right there. This kind of joins something there. That one's already down. Some come from up here. And these are all really thin lines, so what I might do, I might darken some of them a little bit. These, it's a bit too dark. And then come back in with the lighter and sort of widen some of the veining. That's kind of dark. Now, I wanted to find some of that. And there's kind of areas that go up. And now I see here, there seems to be this sort of tapering veins that I might have gone too low, but that's too dark. So right now what I'm doing is kind of putting the shadow that is kind of at the end of this main vein coming off the center vein. And I would just leave this one like that. Remember what I said about getting too much detail in? And then now this one here, I would put this one, and this one. I'm going to use a bit of darker ink. And this doesn't start in the corner, it starts a little bit up and kind of ends in the middle of this. That's kind of dark. Sometimes if you feel like it's too dark, you can do that, and I think that's perfect. So, but you have to do it right away before your ink dries. Now there's one that comes out here. And this one, where am I? Here. Okay, it sort of just disappears. And kind of wanted to put some darker ink in here. And what's happening is some of them are coming off of here now. And this one actually, this one comes back down here. And I went a little too far there, but what I can do is just make that vein thinner right there. So it's going to start to get thinner. And maybe this strip, that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go in here now. And now while this is still wet, I'm going to put in a little bit darker ink. This one's darker. Into these corners. maybe what I'm gonna do is start to put in some of that veining. Oh, it's not gonna show up because it's already wet. Maybe over here some of it. But it's already has some values in there. Maybe I'm going to clean a little bit of the ink off my brush. And diminish the value change here. So pretty much I would want to let that dry before I start working on it more. So, was that helpful? Just, or Maria, who asked me to do more?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, if you have any more questions, you can email me, and I pretty much leave that set up all the time, and I can just share my camera and help you. And if you even want to like show me your photos, or show me your drawing in progress, I can help you by doing that. I think maybe like if I stick my head down there, but because I moved the camera over here because that's the camera that is recording the voice. So does anybody have any questions? No? All right, so that's it. These leaves are due on Saturday. I keep getting a lot of questions about, I'm going to be late. What do I do? Can I still turn it in? And I think maybe everybody here already knows that I don't have a late polish. I don't have any late penalty, but this one, you want to get this done and turned in at the latest 48 hours after the due date, because 50 hours after the due date, Canvas will generate the prompts for you to make comments on the work that the other students did, on 2 of the students. So the way that you get those prompts is you have to go, they won't show up till Tuesday after you've done the, Tuesday after you have done the leaf, and you won't get a prompt if you turned it in more than 48 hours after. So just be aware of that. I really like the way that this stuff happens, and you know, if I had planned it out more, I could maybe use that as some of the veining, but it's really hard to control. So this is more for looser work. This is kind of more of a tight assignment. All right. So let me just camera back over here. All right, so I think that's it for today. I'm going to be back online Friday from I forget. You can look it up because I don't remember. But you can see that it's going to take a bit of time, so be prepared to be patient. And remember that you don't have to do all of the veining. You probably want to do all the primary veining, most of the secondary, and very little of the tertiary, really. You just want to get some of that in. All right? So do you think you have enough to go at it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the things that you could do on the ink one that I didn't do because of time constraints is, if I was going to do this leaf, I would put a super light wash on the entire leaf, because see how those veins are like super white? They look unnatural. So that's something to remember, that if you look at your leaf, all the values on the leaves are just slightly darker than the white of your page. So just be aware of that. All right. Okay, so maybe I'll see some of you on Friday because you'll have questions. If you have questions tomorrow, I'm going to be here most of the day, although I do have committee meetings in the morning until about 1. So, but I can get online with people, so let me know if you have any questions. All right? So this is all 3 of my classes. I have 3 courses that I teach the same 11A. How many of you guys showed up today? 1, 2, 3. So far 5, maybe 6, 7 people max. But because it's recorded, you can watch it later. So I'm going to end the recording and then I'm going to end the session. So stop recording.